Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Kera Dangerous Talk. I am back on a Sunday, guys. It feels like it's been so long. Look, today's show is very special to me because I'm all about standing in the gap for people. I'm all about using your voice for the betterment of others. And today's guest is doing that wholeheartedly. It's a young lady. I actually covered this story about transgender athletes and them competing against biological men and women earlier this year with the plainest Jane. And we went into a long discussion about it, why it's important. We talked about Bruce Jenner and his thoughts about it. I'm sorry, but I actually at the moment I'm missing his name now that he's transgender, but I'm sure it'll pop up in my head. But everyone is speaking out about this topic. Is getting a lot of flack. You can be transgender, and if you're on the wrong side of the debate, people just don't want to hear it. They want you to feel one way about it. They want you to think one way about it. And when we look in history and we see those times when people want us not to use our voice, when people tell us this is how we have to think, those have been the worst times in history where we have allowed terrible things to happen, where we have allowed our rights to be taken away from us. So when I come across a person like Riley Gaines Barker, I'm happy because she's doing what we're supposed to be doing. She's standing in the gap for good people. And without further delay, I'm going to hit the intro because I got to tell you where we at, and then we'll be back with Miss Riley. Yes. Miss Riley Gaines Parker, former University of Kentucky standout. And I have to say this. You have 6 records at the University of Kentucky, 100 and 200 free, 200 medley relay, 400, 800 free relay, a decorated swimmer, 3-time NCAA championship qualifier, and a U.S. Olympic trial qualifier. It's safe to say, just like the show I watch on the CW, Riley, you are a true All-American. So I was so happy to be talking to you this Sunday. Hello.
Of course. Hello. Thank you so much for having me. You described me as a lot cooler than I really am.
Look, don't act shy now, Riley. That's your look, that's your resume, girl. You better stick with it.
Well, thank you. I appreciate you having me on.
Yes, ma'am. Now we could jump right into this transgender sports debate, but I want to give people a sense of who you are because what qualifies you other than just knowing that you were a former standout on the University of Kentucky is that swimming has been your life. Okay. And I know that you've been doing this since you was a young child. I mean, just look at this photo of you at a young age. And I hear that you started swimming around the age of 8. Riley, please take me back to your starts of how you were able to understand and know that you had a love for the water.
Right. So I started swimming when I was about 4 or 5 years old. I just did the typical summer swim that a lot of kids do. But when I got to be about 8, my summer league coach told me, you should really consider doing year-round swimming because I think if you stick with this, you would be great. And so I did. And so this meant that, in second grade, you're swimming 2 hours every single day. And it really only got harder from there. Middle school, you're going to practice 2 hours before school. Then you go to school all day, and then you go practice again for 2 more hours. So it's definitely a lifelong journey. It's a lot of time. It's a lot of dedication.
Now, from your background, I get a sense that you were just very athletic when you were a kid. You had to make a choice between sports. Is that correct?
I did. I played softball and swimming all the way through high school. I actually thought I was going to go to college to play softball, but finally I decided I needed to choose one, and I actually stuck with swimming, which I'm extremely grateful for now.
Yes, I mean, just take a look at you here when you're a young child, and then fast forward to most recent, and you still looking like a beast in the water.
Oh, well, thank you.
You definitely know what you're doing, and also your parents have a background in athletics. Is that correct?
Yes, both my parents were D1 athletes. My mom played softball, and my dad played football in the SEC. And he actually went on to play in the NFL. All my uncles played in the NFL. You know, they're Super Bowl winners. So I do. I'm very fortunate that I have athletic genes.
Now, I'm not just asking that for any reason. I'm just trying to build a case to show people you're not a stranger to understanding what competition
For
is
sure. No, you're
and,
exactly right.
and being in that world.
Right.
Because your parents instilled that into you. But what I also find fascinating about you as well, my slogan for what I do is Kera Dangerous, dangerous, different, Christian or Black and Christian. And I know your faith is very important to you. So
Yes.
just tell us, how do you intertwine? How has your faith been intertwined into what you do athletically?
Yeah, my faith is everything. Growing up in the Church of Christ, you know, you lean on God, very much so. So prayer, you know, all of those things, it's huge to me. And I realize that in athletics, you're doing something for more than just yourself, and that's something that I hold very dear and true to myself.
Now, talking about faith, your faith has led you and sent you down the right path, and you were able to have so much success. But there were so many schools when you're being scouted that you could have went to because you were a standout. But you chose Kentucky and you did well there. But I know the road wasn't always easy for you because I hear that you actually contracted COVID. So if you could just tell us a little bit about that, if you don't mind,
Yeah.
and kind of how you bounce back from that, because I know in sports when you get an injury or you have to take time off, some sports are a little bit more lenient than others as to how much more prep or, how long it'll take you to come back. And I hear in swimming it's very difficult to come back. So just give us a little
Yes.
take on your experience with COVID and how that affected you.
Yes. So we at our NCAA championship meet on my sophomore year. We were supposed to leave on like a Sunday in March, but a Thursday before, everything got canceled, and so we all got sent home. Which in swimming,
Mhm,
you're exactly right. That's not normal. We're at school training all summer, all Christmas. You don't get to take breaks.
mhm.
We only get a couple days off in August all year long. And so when we were sent home, you know, we were kind of just distraught, and all pools were closed. And so this led me to swimming in the lake every single day in a
Wow.
wetsuit because this was my only option. But during that time, I thought to myself, I can really use this to my advantage. I have a source of water that I can train in, whereas so many others don't. I'm going to use this time to develop, and I set my goals of being a national champion.
Mhm.
And so that next year, I could really tell that I was ahead of everyone else. Whereas the year before, I was good, but not at this level.
Mhm.
And so nationals comes around, and I placed in the top 8, but I didn't win. And so I thought to myself, you know, my senior year, next year, that's my year. Everything's going fantastic. Um, November of my season, so that's about the middle of our season, I'm ranked, I think, third in the country,
Wow.
behind an amazing female athlete that I was aware of and one person that I was not aware of,
Mhm.
which, of course, we now know is Leah Thomas. But at the time,
Mhm.
all I knew was this was a senior swimmer from UPenn, which was extremely odd that this person, you know, came out of nowhere senior year that we'd never heard of.
Mhm.
Um, but I didn't think too much of it until a couple days later. An article was posted disclosing that Lia Thomas was formerly Will Thomas and swam 3 years on the men's side at UPenn.
Wow.
And honestly, when I heard this information, I was pretty relieved because I thought to myself, you know, it makes sense why this person is posting the fastest times in the nation by seconds, which seconds in swimming is a lot. And I thought, great, this person's not going to be a threat to my national title because the NCAA will never let this person compete against us. And of course, I was proven wrong.
But you were wrong about that.
Right, exactly. Yeah, so the COVID year, I think that was rough. It was hard to come back from that. But to be coupled with what us female athletes faced my senior year, it made my college experience just feel like a whirlwind at best.
Yeah, so let's jump straight into it. So you brought Leah Thomas up, former UPenn swimmer, first transgender NCAA champion in Division I history. And like you said, Leah was on the men's swim team between the years of 2017 to 2020, and the women's swim team from 2021 to 2022. Now, you work your whole life to get to this point, and you had a year or so there where you had to battle COVID, which probably just, it was a whirlwind for you. It just came out of nowhere. So you already trying your hardest, and then now you have to look to the side of you, and you have to feel like the competition isn't matching up. Now, I've heard in several interviews that you said that it was other some more of your peers feeling just like you, but they didn't really want to say anything.
Right.
So what is it about you that makes you want to speak compared to your peers?
Right. So honestly, for a while, I was kind of in the same boat. And I think it was more so that we were just waiting for someone else to do it. I know myself, I thought surely there will be a coach that will stand up for us, or there will be someone within some athletic department, someone with political power, someone who claims to be a feminist, who understands this is wrong, and that will stick up for us. Because, being 18 to 22-year-old girls, you don't feel like that's your place. Especially when there's people who are so much more equipped. But finally, after Lia Thomas and I raced, we tied, which in swimming is really rare to do. So we went the exact same time down to the 100th. And after tying, we go behind the awards podium where the NCAA officials distribute the trophies before you kind of get marched out. But the official looked at me and said, "Great job. We don't really account for ties, so we only have one trophy, and we are going to give it to Leah. Riley, yours will eventually come in the mail." But
Riley, I hate to laugh, but when I heard,
I know it. And so I questioned him. I was like, I understand there's only one trophy. Ties are rare, but can I ask you why you're adamant on giving this trophy to Thomas? And he looked at me and said, "Well, we're just doing this in chronological order." And I said, "Okay, well, what are we being chronological about? Because we went the exact same time." And he said, "Well, for photo purposes, Leah needs to hold the trophy. You can pose with the 6th place trophy, but you'll have to give it back, and yours will come in the mail." And I was just baffled. And it was at this point that I realized, someone has to speak up about this, and I guess it's going to have to be me.
Yes. This makes me think about all the time in PE that, I was on the basketball team in grade school and high school, but I knew I could play against boys just because I had, I grew up with a brother or whatever, and I would play with him. And those coaches back when I was growing up, they didn't want boys and girls playing together. I had to sit out on the sidelines at recess one time because the teacher was mad because I was playing with a boy in the jungle gym. So it's just wild to me to see kind of where we are now, and you can be at this level and nobody's speaking for you. And I want to say too, if I go back to that picture, when I initially saw this picture, Riley, even though you had this trophy in your hand, it just looked so awkward. I don't know if it was your face, but I knew that there was a story behind this photo. So
For sure. Yeah. No, there was um a lot of anger and frustration. And behind the podium, really, I was running my mouth too much. And Leah's standing right beside me, and I'm looking at this official, and I said, "You're gonna give this trophy to one, someone who won a national title last night, and two, who's a biological male in the women's 200-yard freestyle." I said, "Are you crazy?" And of course, Leah's right beside me, never offers the trophy. And I want to reiterate that it wasn't the trophy it wasn't the tangible trophy that I wanted. I could care less about that trophy. I'm a 12-time All-American. I have tons of those at home, but it was the principle behind it.
Mm-hmm. Well, this is what I want to know because you've done several interviews, but I really haven't heard you answer this question. Have you had any dialogue with Leah at all?
No. At the meet, we briefly, spoke before the race, and it was more so small talk than anything. But afterwards, didn't say a word. Because Leah actually did an interview that I thought to be so selfish and showed so much entitlement, that basically said, you can't support trans people if you don't support them in sports. I want to take a female spot on the Olympic team, and had no regard for females. And I thought it was so disrespectful. But since that one interview, Leah has not said much or been in the media much at all.
Now, I want to try to say this the right way because I don't know how much you can speak to this, but because you're the only one, well, out of most of your peers that has spoken out, when you hear mumblings in the backgrounds, what's the sense that you're getting from most people, that they think this is a political thing that's being pushed, or this is just something to make the university look like they're being all inclusive? Because, you keep hearing that word from the transgender side, like, we need to be inclusive in sports, but they're not thinking about everything else. What's the mumbling? What's the main reasoning for this you think most people aren't saying?
Well, I think most people aren't saying anything, one, because they're intimidated, especially the girls in the Ivy League. So the people on Leah's team or at other universities like Yale or places like that, they're told, you will never get a job if you speak up about this. They're actually told that if they speak up about this and, there's harm that comes to the transgender athlete, they are responsible. So they're emotionally blackmailed, one.
Mm,
Um, they're told that if they feel uncomfortable changing and seeing male genitalia in the locker room, they should seek counseling. So
wow.
they're being made to think that, thinking this is unfair and wrong is wrong. And they're blackmailed and threatened and intimidated. And so I think so many girls just don't understand that the majority of people do feel this way. And I can attest to that because since I've been outspoken, I have had so many female swimmers across the NCAA who have reached out to me and said, thank you so much, including Leah's teammates, who said,
Mm.
we have to deal with this every day. We can't tell you how much we appreciate you doing this because we are unable, which is so, so sad.
Yes, it is. Wow.
Yeah, it
Wow.
makes you speechless.
That's crazy to me. When I look at just, I have to be honest, when I just look at the way the build of Leah, you could just look at a photo and I just see a drastic difference between looking at the biologically born women's body. I'm trying to find a photo. Okay, I believe right here. Even just looking at this, and I believe that's Leah in the middle. If it's not, I'm
Yeah,
so sorry.
no,
but
it is.
but
Yeah,
you just can,
Leah's,
you could just see that it's a disadvantage for biologically born women, just with the body structure. And I have a diagram here to see the differences between male and female's body just naturally. I mean, even the skull is larger on the male, um, broader shoulders on a male.
right.
The male torso is shorter. The female pelvis is wider. The male arms are longer.
Right. And
So it's
these are
just,
things, even with testosterone suppression, these
mm,
things will never be mitigated. And there's other things that are especially important in swimming, like throat size, which of
mm,
course you don't think much of, but in swimming, that's so important. And males on average have a 40% larger throat. Males don't
mm.
have breast tissue, which plays a huge role in success in swimming. And so there's so many little things that even with hormone suppression will never be mitigated. And so I think people, get caught up in saying, oh, well, Leah met the hormone guideline. First of all, I think the guideline in place was 10 animals a liter, and the average female is about one. So
Mhm.
even then, it's not computable. And so I think that's worth noting.
It's very much worth noting, Riley. And I just want to say sometimes I watch Good Morning Britain, and they always have topics about gender fluidity, and I just slotted that word, but y'all know what I mean. And and transgender topics. And the former host of Good Morning Britain, Piers Morgan, he was quoted as saying this, and I wanted to just bring this to attention. Out of 1,500 of the top male tennis players, they could all beat Serena Williams, okay, at her
Right.
top level of her game. 1,500 male tennis players who may be average as men, but if you put them amongst women, they would beat one of the all-time greatest tennis champions in the world. So, we have to think about that, because we keep hearing inclusive, but it's not that we're trying to not include people, but we want sports to be fair and
Right.
competitive.
Right. Sports is a place that doesn't care about your feelings. It doesn't care about your identity. It solely relies on how you are anatomically and what, your biology presents. And so, being in the workplace, relationships, there are different factors that, you can look to gender identity for, but sports is just not one of those.
Absolutely. And I just want to say, because, I did say that I felt like in one of my posts that not a lot of the big superstars in sports are speaking out enough. But I just want to go back to somebody who has been speaking out from the very beginning, and Martina Navratilova. Um, Nartovala. I don't know why. Sometimes I can get her name and then sometimes I cannot. Riley.
Yeah.
Riley, look, you got to help me out.
No, I know. We'll just call her Martina.
Martina. I swear sometimes I can get it though, but right now I cannot. But anywho, she spoke out about this, and she was forced to give an apology, but she feels as if, transgender people should not be competing against biological men and women. And I think I'm right in saying that Martina is actually a lesbian, so it's not that she has any hate in her heart for transgender people. She's been on their side, but when it comes to sports and competing with each other, there has to be a better solution. Now, I probably should ask you this question at the end of the interview, but I want to know what you think right now. What would be a solution for this situation in your mind, Riley?
So I think sports that, you can measure, like swimming or track and field or something that's more individual. I think having a trans category is a way to ensure athletic opportunity. It's not denying anyone of sports. It's a way that people can have chances of success, and it's a way to keep the playing field even. I know a trans category might not be the most reasonable thing in terms of finances and having people compete in it, but even opening the men's category to an open division, I think that's a way that ensures no one is threatened by physical ability or, anything like that. It's still a way to have fairness in sports, and that's what we need to prioritize.
Absolutely. And I just wanted to say as well, you have a website, and I think it's worth mentioning, RileyGaines.com. And you say, as a quote on your website, that you're bringing awareness to female equality in sports, starting with women's swimming. Do you feel like you've gotten a lot of pushback from speaking out? Um, because I don't hear anywhere where you're being hateful. But
I really haven't gotten that much in comparison to my support I've gotten. It's the support is tenfold anything negative. And the negative comments are either you're transphobic, which is not true,
okay.
or you're ugly, which is also just stupid. It's just a stupid comment because they can't dispute what I'm saying.
And
Or
you're
two,
very cute. You're very cute,
well, thank
Riley.
you. Or three, you're bad at swimming, which I'm not bad at swimming. And so those are the only comments really I've gotten in that are negative. And so I think I wanted to mention that actually is that, you're thought to believe that you will receive all this negative backlash, you'll never get a job. But since speaking out, it has been the total opposite. And so I think that proves that they have this agenda they want to push, and they're trying to intimidate people, so people don't realize what's actually happening.
Look, I'm probably gonna get some bad feedback for this, but help me out. What is Bruce Jenner's name now? I just cannot.
Caitlyn.
Caitlyn.
Yeah, it's yeah, I
I
know.
forgot. Okay, so he's one of the best athletes of all time as well. But in an interview, I believe it was last year, Caitlyn said that, well, it might have been this year. He said on talking about Leah that she probably held back on her ability. Now I know you may not want to tackle that straight on, but could you see something like that happening so that maybe controversy won't be started up? Like when you look next to you and you see this broad body and it's neck to neck with you. But how do you feel about somebody like Caitlyn Jenner actually stepping out and saying that somebody in this predicament may hold back on their abilities?
Well, I think that's exactly what happened. Um,
Wow.
I I think Leah that first day won the national title by seconds in the 500 freestyle.
Mm-hmm.
That second day when we raced, we actually tied for fifth place. If you know, even if you don't know swimming, but if you know how splits and stuff work, it was extremely obvious that Leah is holding back. Even if you just watch the race, Leah
Mm-hmm.
touches and is not out of breath like the rest of us. Um, and so I think that it was strategic.
Mm-hmm.
I think Leah was trying to prove a point that, look, trans women can compete in the female category and not dominate every time. Um, but even so,
Mm-hmm.
fifth in the country is a huge accomplishment out of, the thousands and thousands and thousands of swimmers. To get fifth is dominating. But to get fifth and not try, that's a mockery of what we do. It's a mockery of, the time and dedication that we've put into our sport. And so to have Caitlyn Jenner, who as a world class athlete knows what it takes, and also as a transgender to know what that is like, especially the mental health side of it,
Mm-hmm.
to have Caitlyn comment on it, I think it speaks volumes. And then, of course, you still have people calling Caitlyn Jenner transphobic. So,
Mm.
I mean, how crazy is that? If they don't
You
like your argument, you're transphobic.
no, that's exactly what it is. That is exactly what it is, Riley. So it seems like a lot of times you're having to stand alone here and fight. What do you think is going to take to get other superstars to come out and say something?
I think once it infiltrates into a bigger sport, I know swimming, generally isn't thought of this super intense athletic sport. And so I think once it hits basketball, that's my guess.
Mm.
Um, that's when there will be more of an uproar. And I think people are starting to realize now, and I'm hoping it's going in the direction that more people are understanding, it's more than just unfair competition as well. It's also that you're being exposed to and having to exploit yourself in a manner where you're undressing in front of someone with male parts. I think once all these pieces start to get uncovered to the public, people will realize this is insanity and they're not okay with it.
So I want to be clear on the UPenn swimming team. They actually had to go in the same locker room as Leah.
We all did. We're
Okay.
sitting there changing, and granted, it's an all-female meet, so there's not even a male locker room option.
Mm.
But that's something we were curious about coming into the meet. Was, we know we're competing against Leah, but will we have to change with Leah? So we're standing in the locker room, and typically at these big meets, this is a place where you can be vulnerable and you get to see your friends from all over, and especially in a sport like swimming where you're pretty much half naked all the time. I'm not going to say the locker room is a modest place because we're all
Mm-hmm.
comfortable in that area with each other. But when you add someone with male genitalia
Mm-hmm.
to that equation, that changes completely. It's violating. You
Mm-hmm.
just feel like your rights as a woman have been totally infringed upon, and no one is saying anything about it. And so you feel almost helpless. Like, why is no one sticking up for us? Or why is no one talking about this? Or who let this happen? And why were we not forewarned?
Did
And I
anybody?
also think it's worth noting, sorry, I just interrupted you, but Leah Thomas is actually still attracted to women. And so when
Mm.
you're in a changing space with a biological guy who likes girls, Yet it's sexual harassment if you say something about it, because under Biden administration's new Title IX, it would be sexual harassment if I tried to walk out of the locker room and challenge Thomas's identity.
Wow.
It's not harassment for Thomas to be in the locker room with us. It's harassment if we question it.
Thank you for bringing it up, because that is an excellent point that you just made. And we can't not talk about FINA, because they're the swimming governing body, International Swimming Federation. Now they have a new policy about trans swimming, where they say that transgender people must have lower or suppressed testosterone, or must have transitioned prior to puberty or the age of 12. And one of the heads over the FINA was quoted as saying that even though this is a new policy, they also are trying their best to protect competitive fairness. Uh, just taking it back a little bit, how do you feel about the new policy right now given out by FINA?
I think it's a somewhat right step in the right direction. They're banning transgender athletes from elite competitions, which includes the Olympics, and so I think that is good.
Mm-hmm.
But to have that piece in there that says, you have to be transitioned by the age of 12, that's insane. Are we encouraging young kids who know nothing about the implications of changing your whole, well, you can't change your sex, but, altering everything that entails? Are we encouraging, kids as young, or actually as old as 12? You have to be younger than 12 years old to, go through these life altering altercations. It's crazy. So
Yeah.
while it's a step in the right direction, there's definitely still some flaws to that policy.
I got a very serious question to ask you, probably the most serious in this interview. I saw a dog in the back seat,
I know.
Riley, but I wanted to. Hi,
This is
hi,
Buddy.
puppy. Hi, buddy.
He's been
but but
making noises this whole time.
since you have so many things going on in the back seat, I wanted to ask you: do you happen to see any feminists back there, because they're missing right now,
Yeah,
Riley?
no. Unless Buddy wants to be one. I actually have my husband here too.
Hi, I was gonna say congratulations. I know you just got married.
Thank you.
You
And he
welcome.
swam for the University of Kentucky as well.
Wow.
And so being a guy swimmer, he understands the work that we put in, the differences between the two sexes. And so I think it's kind of important, while guys probably can't attest to this in the same way that women can, he can still stick up and support and know that this is wrong. So
Absolutely. Now, you stood alone many times speaking out, and I have a question kind of on the same topic, but a little different, because when this story broke, it was interesting to me, but now hearing about this and you is really sticking out to me now. Now, it's a couple of female Olympic track and field um, participants who have naturally high testosterone levels, and they were banned from the Olympics. They're two 19-year-olds. What is your thought about women who naturally have high testosterone compared to someone that is transgender?
this one's tricky. And I definitely think this is something that should be more case by case, because obviously they have no control over, their body and anatomy and things like that. But I do think in the situation, let's say Caster Semenya, for example, who is one of these track athletes who was limited in what they could or couldn't compete in. While Caster has always identified as a girl and outside looks like a girl, has female genitalia externally, Caster has internal testes, which of course gives you the musculature and the biology of a man. And so this is a lot more hard to kind of put in rein. But I do think someone with that male biology still has to compete as a guy, as that what would be is fair, and that's what's still level. But it is tricky. I think intersex is, a totally different situation than what transgender athletes are facing.
Absolutely. Well, thank you for speaking on that. And I just want to bring up really quickly that earlier on we heard around everywhere that Leah was nominated for NCAA's Woman of the Year award. Now this reminds me of what happened with Caitlyn Jenner at ESPN's ESPY Awards. Out of all the people, all the women, they gave Caitlyn in the first year of being transgender the women's award. So
Right.
how did that feel when, I mean, let me just go back to it. You have literally been swimming since pretty much from the womb. I mean, because we swimming in our mama's belly, and then you get to college and you're all American, and then you get this headline
Right.
that your transgender peer is also nominated. What was the feeling behind seeing that headline?
So this award, NCAA Woman of the Year, is the highest award for all female athletes in college sports. So it's a huge deal. Of the 250,000 athletes, only about 500 are nominated. So it's a very, very big deal. And so each school gets to nominate one person, one female. And so I actually found out I was University of Kentucky's nominee a couple months before everyone was released. And so I was thrilled because I know how big of an honor this is, especially, at our school, we had world championship track runners. We had the number one WNBA basketball draft pick. And so I was just so ecstatic that I was chosen from our school. And so once you're chosen, you go through an application. You have to write a personal statement, fill out all these different things. And then after your application, the NCAA will approve if you're, an approved nominee or not. And so, of course, I was, and I was just thrilled. And then, a couple weeks later, they released all the nominees, and I saw that Lia Thomas was also a nominee. And that just made this award meaningless. It totally devalued what it meant to be NCAA Woman of the Year, which, of course, showcases the limits of a female body. It also takes into account, your community service, your academics. There's a lot of pieces that this award encompasses. But when I found this out, I was just, that this to me was worse than Leah winning a national title by far, because, not only did this, I don't know, I thought to myself, maybe Leah competing in the NCAAs, like they happened fast. The NCAA didn't have time to make a policy that, would correct this. And maybe it won't happen again. But when they nominated Thomas for Woman of the Year, I realized they are encouraging this. They are celebrating this. And it's at the expense of women.
Yes, it is. I just want to show some photos here of Leah. Now, just to take people back again, because I want to make sure people understand here, you have a website, RileyGaines.com. Tell us a little bit about Join the Fight and how people can help you in what you're doing right now currently.
Right. So there's a couple different ways. I'm actually partnering with an organization called Icons, which was started by one swimmer who was an NCAA champion back in 2005 from University of Arizona, and then also a mom of a swimmer who swims. Her daughter swims for Yale. They've partnered together and made this organization that is trying to help link athletes together, link females together who, because obviously together we're stronger, and together we have a voice, and people are scared by themselves. And so I think that's a great way to stay involved. And you don't have to be a female or an athlete for that matter. They push out great information every week. They have webinars, different things. So you're involved, you're staying up to date with the newest things. And so that's great. I also started a federal PAC, which is called 9PAC, which is a way to help candidates around the country and different races. We're advocating for them because they're advocating for us, and so it's a way to support them.
I just want to also, and I'm not like the smartest person on this topic here, but I'm going to say that I told everybody what FINA, the governing body over swimming, has a new policy, right? But also, this transgender debate is a state by state thing. I know that before COVID-19, Idaho became the first state to pass a sweeping ban on trans people participation in athletics from kindergarten through college. So this is something that we'll have to keep our eye on, and locally you'll have to use your voice as well. Before we get out of here, because I know we have to let you go in a second, but the word cisgender bothers me.
It
Um,
bothers me too.
I'm
I hate
trying.
that.
Let me tell you something, Riley. Even on LinkedIn, and I used to be the most liberal person, but it's like at some point in society, things got so crazy. I had to step back, and I realized I was more conservative than liberal because we all just kind of went off on the deep end. But even the females, and this is just my opinion, when you're on LinkedIn and you see people put she and her and him and he, and you're straight or whatever, or lesbian or gay, to me that's really hurting the situation because you're giving people power to change what we call ourselves. So, and I see companies kind of looking at this like, oh, this person is being inclusive, and to me, I don't put it up there, and I'm thinking to myself, do I not look as good to an employer because I don't put that on my
I
profile?
know it. I know. It seems like we've gotten to a point where, having to clarify our pronouns, and if you don't, you're a bigot. That to me is so mind blowing. I get told all the time, you don't get it because you're a straight white girl, a straight blonde haired white girl who's
Mm-hmm.
been so privileged her whole life. And it just bothers me because, yes, I'm straight. Yes,
Mm-hmm.
I'm white. Yes, I have blonde hair. I don't even know what that part matters.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, I come from a family where my parents are together, but they're saying these things like it irritates them. And I understand, there are definitely oppressed groups. And no, I'm by no means a minority in any situation, but it just bothers me how people come at it. It just is so frustrating. I can't really put a nail, um, a hammer to the nail there, but it just, I hate when people say that. It's like they want me to be all these other things. And it just irritates me.
Riley, you're white.
I know, right?
Oh my god, I didn't know this, man.
I know. But you're right. Cisgender, I hate that.
Yeah.
Having to clarify that what you identify matches what you are biologically. There's no such thing as cisgender. It just is frustrating.
I might ask you this before, and I don't want to mess up your friendship with the University of Kentucky, but did you feel like they were mostly wanting you to be quiet, or did they give you silent support? Can you speak on that at all, or do you
Yeah.
feel like you were left alone in this, or what?
So I actually, at my university, I had a ton of support, which I think speaks volumes on my school.
Mm,
Also, which I'm realizing is totally an anomaly of how other schools are treating their athletes,
mm,
or really anyone, any of their students. But at University of Kentucky, my athletic director, he encouraged me from the beginning, which I talked to him before I initially spoke out. Um, I told him, what happened and that I was wanting to do an interview with the Daily Wire because they had reached out to me and asked if I would. And he said, of course, speak your heart. He said, this is something that, you are passionate about. It's something that we're passionate about because we love you and we support you, which is so rare to come across. And so that's another reason, like you said in the beginning, I chose University of Kentucky, which I never, ever thought I would be here. But
mhm.
I definitely think it's a God thing. I think he placed me here with these amazing people who are just so fantastic. And so I'm so grateful for my time here.
And give me your major is in health sciences,
Yes,
and
ma'am.
and you're also a Tennessee girl, so you got my heart with that because obviously I'm a Southern girl too. But health sciences, like you already going down the health field. I bet you like I probably picked the right one since I'm
Right,
since.
exactly. Exactly. My major was human health sciences, and then I had another major in health advocacy. So I understand all of these things, especially from a scientific point of view. But I'm actually going to dental school to
Mhm.
pursue dentistry. So that's my next plan.
Oh, well, we wish you the best with that, Riley, and we know that you can do it. I want to know, where does your career as far as swimming go from here? Tell us.
Yeah, so that meet where Thomas and I raced, that was actually my last competitive meet. I'm still swimming some, but I'm training for triathlons. I've signed up for a half marathon, so I'm just trying to find different ways to still compete and stay competitive, because it's always been a part of me. It's hard to just cold turkey stop. And so I'm still swimming, but not nearly as intensely.
Absolutely. I just want to, before you go, I just want to let you get a sense that it's people standing behind you. Um, it, so don't ever feel like you're alone. This
Right,
this this topic is very important to me because I just feel like it's unfair to make people feel like they hate a whole group just because we want to keep things fair.
right,
And I just commend you and tip my hat to you for being fearless because you were on a national stage and one of the top in what you do, and you didn't have to do what you're doing and use your voice. So as a well, can I call myself a woman's athlete? I didn't make it that far, but
yes, of course you can. Yes,
as a
no, of
fellow
course.
former athlete, I say thank you. And hopefully some of these superstars are will get just half of the courage that you have to speak out. I believe Michael Phelps has said a little bit on this issue, but I
Yeah,
would like to
I've
see
had
more
tons
women.
and tons of people who are Olympians,
Hmm.
very famous people in my DMs and messaging me and saying thank you, but I just can't publicly speak out, which is also a frustrating piece, because that's how change is made. And, you have to make sacrifices if it's something that's important to you. And so I think with time, people will realize that, like you said, it's 95% of the country feels this way.
Yes. And we're like Pierce Morgan when he used to be on Good Morning Britain, he always said, we're changing all of our laws and our rules to fit 1% of the population. And
Right,
so when people say it's a political ideology, it's for a reason because we have to ask ourselves, who are the people pushing this and why are they pushing it? And we may not know the answers today, but we continuously must continue to use our voice. Riley, as we get out of here, please tell us how people can reach out to you again if they want to um, lend their hand in this fight with you or whatever contact information you want to give.
right. So my Instagram is Riley G Barker. I normally check my DMs and stuff, and my Twitter is Riley Gaines. You said my website, which is rileygaines.com, and so all of those are great ways to get in contact. I would love to hear things from people, and I'm always open to help people if they need courage or confidence in speaking out.
Yes, and tell your husband thank you as well.
He's from
Y'all so
England, so
cute.
he's got a funny British accent.
Oh, that's funny.
Yes, but thank you so much for having me on. I appreciate it so much.
Absolutely. See you later, Riley.
Yeah, bye.
Bye bye. Guys, thank you so much for joining me. What a great episode, after covering this topic prior. And if you haven't seen it, guys, make sure you go back to one of the trending topic episodes I did with the plainest Jane. And let me tell you, on Kera Dangerous Talk, we have some great stuff coming up. Stay on the lookout for my interview with TikTok sensation BMW Kenny. This guy went viral to the point where Will Smith was doing his TikTok challenge. Okay. Got an interview with him. I got another good interview coming up. I'm not going to tell you what it is yet, but all you have to do is stay tuned to the Kera Dangerous Talk YouTube channel community page. If you haven't already, make sure you subscribe. Make sure you like this video and leave me some great comments underneath. And hey, I'm not a beggar, but I tell you what, it helps out the show. If you want to send show donations, go ahead and send over your donations to my Cash App at $ Kara Dangerous. Okay. So as always, enjoy, be respectful. You are loved. And guys, I'll see you here again very soon.